Welcome to A Year of War and Peace. I'm your host, Brian E. Denton. A Year of War and Peace is a daily, year-long, chapter-by-chapter reading of and meditation on Leo Tolstoy's epic novel, War and Peace. In these videos and podcasts, you'll be treated to a free reading of one chapter per day of the novel, plus a reflective essay I've written individually tailored to that day's chapter. These readings are offered for free, though if you'd like to support me, you can do so in one of three ways. First, you could purchase my ebook, A Year of War and Peace. It features the entire novel, plus all of my reflective essays, and it's only $2.99 on Amazon.com. You could also become a patron at patreon.com/Brian E. Denton. If you sign up there, you'll receive a sonnet once a month, plus a link to an ebook of my collected sonnets. Finally, if you like, you can make a one-time donation to my PayPal account. The email there is brianedenton@gmail.com. You can also use that email to contact me. I'd be happy to hear from you. Your support is greatly appreciated. Today's reading and reflection is from Chapter 352. Chapter 352. A locomotive is moving. Someone asks, what moves it? A peasant says the devil moves it. Another man says the locomotive moves because its wheels go round. A third asserts that the cause of its movement lies in the smoke which carries the wind away. The peasant is irrefutable. He has devised a complete explanation. To refute him, someone would have to prove to him that there is no devil, or another peasant would have to explain to him that it's not the devil, but a German who moves the locomotive. Only then, as the result of the contradiction, will they see that they are both wrong. But the man who says that the movement of the wheels is the cause refutes himself. For having once begun to analyze, he ought to go on and explain further why the wheels go round. Until he has reached the ultimate cause of the movement of the locomotive and the pressure of steam in the boiler, he has no right to stop in his search for the cause. The man who explains the movement of the locomotive by the smoke that is carried back has noticed that the wheels do not supply an explanation and has taken the first sign that occurs to him, and in his turn has offered that as an explanation. The only conception that can explain the movement of the locomotive is that of a force commiserate with the movement observed. The only conception that can explain the movement of the peoples is that of some force commiserate with the whole movement of the peoples. Yet to supply this conception, various historians take forces of all different kinds, all of which are incommensurate with the movement observed. Some see it as a force directly inherent in heroes, as the peasant sees the devil in the locomotive. Others as a force resulting from several other forces, like the movement of the wheels. Others again as an intellectual influence, like the smoke that it blows away. So long as historians are written of separate individuals, whether Caesars, Alexanders, Luthers, or Voltaires, and not the histories of all, absolutely all those who take part in an event, it is quite impossible to describe the movement of humanity without the conception of a force compelling men to direct their activity toward a certain end. And the only such conception known to historians is that of power. This conception is the only one handle by means of which the material of history, as at present expounded, can be dealt with, and anyone who breaks that handle off, as Buckle did, without finding some other method of treating historical material, merely deprives himself of the one possible way of dealing with it. The necessity of the conception of power as an explanation of historical events is best demonstrated by the universal historians and historians of culture themselves, for they professedly reject the conception, but inevitably have recourse to it at every step. In dealing with humanity's inquiry, the science of history up to now is like money in circulation, paper money and coin. The biographies and special national histories are like paper money. They can be used and can circulate and fulfill their purpose without harm to anyone, and even advantageously, as long as no one asks what is the security behind them. You need only forget to ask how the will of heroes produces events, and such histories as Thiers will be interesting and instructive, and may perhaps even possess a tinge of poetry. But, just as doubts of the real value of paper money arise, either because, being easy to make, too much of it gets made, or because people try to exchange it for gold, so also doubts concerning the real value of such histories arise either because too many of them are written, or because in its simplicity of heart someone inquires, By what force did Napoleon do this? That is, wants to exchange the current paper money for the real gold of actual comprehension. The writers of universal histories and of the history of culture are like people who, recognizing the defects of paper money, decide to substitute for it money made of metal that has not the specific gravity of gold. It may indeed make jingling coin, but will do no more than that. Paper money may deceive the ignorant, but nobody is deceived by tokens of base metal that have no value but merely jingle. As gold is gold only if it is serviceable not merely for exchange but also for use, so universal historians will be valuable only when they can reply to history's essential question, what is power? The universal historians give contradictory replies to that question, while the historians of culture evade it and answer something quite different. And as counters of imitation gold can be used only among a group of people who agree to accept them as gold, or among those who do not know the nature of gold, so universal historians and historians of culture, not answering humanity's essential question, serve as currency for some purposes of their own, only in universities and among the mass of readers who have a taste for what they call serious reading. All right, so that concludes my reading of Chapter 352. I will now proceed to my reflection on the same. A Year of War and Peace, Day 352. Same as it ever was. Our post-Enlightenment civilization, enamored of reason and resplendent with science, conceives for itself the rather dubious project of attaining perfect knowledge in all domains of human endeavor. This has been the argument ever since those pesky Frenchmen first put together the Encyclopédie. Jean-Baptiste Laurent d'Alembert, noted contributor to that august publication, writes in his introductory essay that their program will expound the true principles of things and will note their relationships, that it will contribute to the certitude and progress of human knowledge, and that by multiplying the number of true scholars, distinguished artisans, and enlightened amateurs, it will contribute new advantages to society as a whole. Tolstoy's second epilogue of War and Peace is a contribution to D'Alembert's aspiration, and that it seeks progress toward and certitude of human knowledge concerning the subject of history. Such undertakings as those of D'Alembert and Tolstoy, if we are equipped with only the apish tools of human intelligence, are probably bound to fail. The frustrations are already apparent. Yesterday, Tolstoy asked the question of what force moves nations. He found no satisfactory answers in the works of history up to his own time. Today, probing further into the work of historians, he approaches the beginning of an answer to his question. History, for Tolstoy, at its root, is a movement of people and nations. The only conception that can explain the movement of the peoples, he writes, is that of some force commiserate with the whole movement of the peoples. The only commiserate force historians have been able to discover so far, according to Tolstoy, is power. Tolstoy is not satisfied with the historian's account of power, though. He believes their insight is incomplete and counterfeit. He'll spend a few more chapters fleshing this argument out, but clearly he believes that the candidacy of power as the prime mover of history is a losing ticket. Perhaps seeking such a candidate is a fool's errand in the first place. Maybe we are mistaken in believing that the Enlightenment instruments of reason and the scientific method are adequate for the job of obtaining human understanding. All human understanding, anyway. It's certainly the case that these tools offer solution in mathematics and the sciences. Less clear is the idea that they help in the realm of the so-called humanities, like history, morals, and politics. The notion of human perfectibility is much older than the Enlightenment, after all. And despite all these millennia of attention, there's just as likely to be regression made in these fields as there is to be made progress. Some things just might be beyond our understanding, same as it ever was. Daily meditation. All things are the same, familiar in experience and ephemeral in time and worthless in matter. Everything now is just as it was in the time of those whom we have buried. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations. All right, so that concludes my reading of and reflection on Chapter 352 of War and Peace. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining me. Remember that if you'd like to support me, you can do so either by purchasing the ebook, A Year of War and Peace, becoming a patron at patreon.com, or making a one-time donation to PayPal. The links to all that are down below in the show notes in the description. Also down in the description, you're going to find links to my Amazon wishlist for books and movies. If you'd like to purchase a book or a movie from me, That'd be great. I'd love it. And we'll set up a Zoom call to talk about that book or that movie. All right. Tomorrow, we're going to be reflecting and reading chapter 353 of War and Peace. I hope you'll join me. Until then, take care of yourselves and others.